Jay! I did it! I found a buyer!
What? No. Who?
I don't know, some fucking Jamaican guy.
Do they know you?
No?
Okay. You have to wear a disguise.
Do I need one?
Of course. Are you kidding me? Yes.
I loved your series, by the way. I saw all 3 episodes.
Oh, wow, thank you so much.
And I really enjoyed it.
That's so nice to hear it. Thank you.
This is based on circumstances, of real life circumstances that have happened in this area.
In the South Asian community,
Yeah.
So like, probably about 5 years ago, Joe, I come from a trucking family. So my dad used to be a truck driver, and eventually he opened up his own school and like trains truck drivers. So I've grown up around truck drivers. My uncles are truck drivers. And about like 5 or 6 years ago, I started seeing all these articles in the newspaper pop up about these South Asian truck drivers that were being arrested, some convicted and some let off for smuggling drugs, mainly across the Windsor-Detroit border. And I became fascinated by it, and I had just, I think I'd finished film school, and I was like, I'm going to do this doc, but I was acting, and I never had the time to do it. But I think the nugget of it was that these men were like, they looked like my dad, but they were involved in this sort of nefarious thing that was also, so it was like foreign to me and familiar to me at the same time.
Sure.
And that's why I decided I wanted to write about it.
That's awesome. Very interesting. And you wanted to act in it, obviously, as well.
Well, I mean, yeah,
An actor.
I'm an actor.
How much fun was it for you and for you to kind of subvert the culture that is typically portrayed the way that the South Asian culture is particularly portrayed on screen? It's a very interesting way in which you guys approach this. And
Yeah, because it's Suri, the main character, is this young millennial girl who is obsessed with Instagram and urban life, and she gets dragged back into her hometown, and she's like an anti-hero, and we don't see many female anti-heroes, let alone South Asian female anti-heroes. So as a director, that was interesting to tackle that kind of character and bring her to life.
And to be fair, Suri's not the only subversion that you guys accomplish in this
No.
film. I mean, we won't spoil it, but there are some
Yeah.
very interesting turns with the characters.
Yes.
And especially with with all the characters, we wanted to give them, there was a duality that we tried to find with each of the characters.
Nice.
And especially with the female characters, I think that that they're not seen in the traditional way that we were used to seeing South Asian women.
Sure.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, you're very careful about making sure that the culture is represented, and that the idea of what the more deeply religious and idealistic nature of your culture is in respecting that. And so talk about that balance a little bit and kind of making that part of the film. Was that important?
Well, I guess as a director, I was sort of wanting to go for authenticity, and maybe that's why it looks the way it does. It's very grounded, very realistic, and cinematic in some ways.
Yeah.
But not having these characters be a caricature, but feeling real and grounded. But that was kind of the approach there.
Yeah, and I think that because it's an authentic story, because the storytellers of it are also authentic, the culture, it's not like we could
Just cut it off or
just
ignore
cut it off.
Yeah,
It's
it's
present.
inherent in there.
It's inherent in the story, but I think that one thing that I'm proud of both of us in terms of the direction and the writing is that it's also not about the culture. It's not a South Asian story. It's a family drama crime
it's about a
story
family.
just set
Nice.
in a South Asian home.
That's awesome. I want to make sure that I get her name correctly. The mother, I want to make sure that I pronounce it correctly too.
Balinder Johal.
Balinder? Is that how you say it?
Balinder, yeah.
Balinder?
Like Supinder,
Yeah.
but Balinder.
When you approached her and gave her the meat of this character, how excited was she? I gotta imagine she was really excited to play this.
Well, it was an interesting journey with Belinda because I'm a fan of hers and I have been because she's done a lot of deep metas films that you've probably seen her before. She did Heaven on Earth. She was in Biba Boys.
Yeah, she's a very familiar face.
She's a very familiar face, and I think I wrote to her. So I didn't send her the script first. I wrote to her and I talked to her about Nunny and who Nunny was. And Belinda's just like, she's a workhorse. Like, she does so many movies.
She's 86 years old.
That's awesome.
And she's from Vancouver.
Yeah, she's
and
from
she
Vancouver,
flew to
yeah.
Toronto in November and was such a good sport and on our little indie production.
Yeah,
Like,
and she's played some pretty wicked women in the past too. Like, but I think that for her, she's had those conversations with me that that she really wanted to dive into Nunny because there's that darkness there that we don't always get as actors, and I think it's a gift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know that the goal of this was to present something that will become a full-length series and become something that's bigger than it is now. But there's so much going on in just these 3 episodes. I'm wondering if you might be apt to spoil a little bit for me. How is this the design of the entire series, or is this just to get enough people interested in what you're doing? Because there's so much going on. I can't imagine what the next episode is going to be packed with.
Well, we're currently in development with the CBC on the next iteration.
or cycle 2.
Yeah, cycle 2. Yeah, we're in development, so we're just figuring out what it's going to be. There's more story.
Yeah.
coming,
Continues.
I'm sure.
It
It
picks up.
continues.
Picks up
Yeah,
from where
it
it leaves
continues,
off.
and we have people giving us money to continue it. So you will get more.
All right. Yeah, it's so jam packed and interesting. How was it filming? Intense scenes like that.
Super easy. I mean, like very casual. Not one thing went wrong. It was.
Yeah, it was it was hard. It was 12 days we shot that.
Wow.
And we had all location shooting. I would say 65% was shot in Supinder's parents' house while her own Nunny was living there and while the whole household was going on.
Yeah.
It was
a zoo. It was madness.
There's in the middle of the series, there's a sort of the climactic drug deal happens. It was that, November night shoot, pouring rain, and we couldn't reschedule that day because we're an indie shoot, and that was the day, and there's no rain cover. And
Yeah.
that's
And it's
what we're doing.
Canada,
It's
and
Canada.
it's
It actually adds a lot to the grittiness.
It
of
does. We were
Yeah,
if only you could turn the camera around and see the crew miserable and shivering. But yeah, I wish we had some footage of that.
I think we have some pictures actually. Yeah, but they actually look happy in the pictures.
Yeah.
I think they post.
Looks like he was caught with over 100 kilos of cocaine in his truck. Charges are pretty severe.
He's just a truck driver. He's not a drug dealer.
Should probably take that out.
Dad!
Everyone's been gawking at me since I crossed the 410.
You're going to ruin our name in our community.
I already said I'd save the small talk for someone who can talk.
Don't move!
I got no ears for you.
Look, if something's up, just tell me so I can help you. I can't do anything if you're hiding shit.
The characters still have a lot of unresolved conflict to deal with on top of moving the story forward. There is an incredible moment in the 3rd episode where you're sitting on the bench with Nani, and it's like this Godfather-esque moment, and it's such a great turning point in the idea. So, talk a little bit about how you guys mapped out these little spots that make that happen, so that you get the full impact of the subversion.
Well, like we had our locations,
Yeah.
right? And it's interesting you say The Godfather because that was one of my favorite movies, but also an influence because
Nice.
Godfather is about a guy who's pulled into his family's business and like gets sort of into it, and that's sort of what Suri's.
The Godfather was a reference for us, but also I think that like we also talked about like women's power and how it's different than men's power, and
how they use it,
and how they navigate that world. There's a lot of fun things to play with as a writer, and then also I think for Renuka as a actor.
Well, talk about it as a woman too. I mean, the empowerment that you're presenting in these projects is very, very palpable and very strong. And talk about how you designed that, and was that very important in the essence of what you're trying to do with this?
Well, yeah,
series?
I mean, she created these really rich, interesting characters, and as a director, that's what I want to play with, So yes, they're like strong women. That's so important to see, but it's people we haven't seen, and it's just nice to put that out there. So
you also touch on the LGBTQ community in this as well. So there's the whole spectrum of hitting all the notes.
I think for her to have a friend that was also an outsider, that she felt like an outsider from her community, and you can tell by like she has blue contacts when we start in the blonde hair, that she doesn't really quite to fit in, and that she had an ally who also had that similar, and they kind of like knew and understood each other in a way that other people didn't. And you love JJ. Like he's
definitely.
just and Jade Hasuna, who plays him, is actually one of my best friends. So it was just like so easy to play best friends with him because we have that love for each other.
Talk about what you love about being indie filmmakers.
Oh, I think so. I think one thing that was wonderful about this project and working with the CBC, because we were working with our national broadcaster, and when I brought the project to them, it was a really intense pitch actually, because I talked about my family and I talked about these men and I talked about some personal circumstances and why I cared about the project. And from then on, they gave us a green light, and they didn't really bother us, and they let us kind of do whatever we wanted. And even with the format, so it's 3x25, because we got the funding for the show as a web series.
Sure.
And I went to them and they said, okay, so what is the format? And I was like, well, I think it's 3 episodes, and each episode is 25 minutes. And they were like, that's weird. We've never done that before. That's not how we release our digital content.
Well, the thing is, they had only really done comedic digital content, and this was a dramatic.
Sure.
And I think maybe drama is consumed more in a bit of a longer format. So
CBC, for people that I don't know, are behind Schitt's Creek and big series.
And Working Moms and Kim's Convenience. Renuka's directed a bunch of episodes of Kim's Convenience, so I point to her. And also, she just finished her first feature.
Nice, congratulations.
Yeah, but more to your question about what's great about being an indie filmmaker is what you just said, the creative control.
Yeah.
And as diverse women, having that creative control and having the power. And that is really important because it's great to have diversity in front of the camera, behind the camera, but if that person doesn't have power in terms of creating that content and like having it go from script to screen the way that they intended, what's the point?
Nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you lose the truth of that story.
Yeah.
So, as filmmakers, as creators, we often look at our work and we go, okay, I should have cut there, I should have stayed longer, I should have been part of that, or I should have gotten a cover shot on that, but I don't want to know any of that from you. What I want to know from each of you is what you think you nailed.
Oh.
You go first.
Oh,
for as an actor, what did you think you nailed?
That's interesting. I think I nailed the casting because I was also the cast. Oh yeah, because me. Well, but I think we put together a really strong ensemble. And I mean, as far as like I play the lead character in the show, it is really a story about this community and this family and the family and the extension of that family. And I think each one of those actors inside those characters is amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
For me, there's a scene, it's like the midpoint of the film where Suri puts on this new disguise. And shooting that, I remember shooting it, and I don't do montages at all, but shooting that, I really felt like when we were doing it, it felt like we were creating like an iconic character.
Nice.
And I feel that translated to the screen.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.